expected him to do the 1G, 1F. That would grow our economy, that would bring in more revenue and employ people. That is not what they are doing. This is the most laziest form of governance I have ever seen in my entire life. The most laziness I have seen in my entire life. This is reckless and irresponsible.
Oh.
It is reckless.
No, well, okay. I think my brother Abdul Aziz is doing his best on this subject matter. What is important, I think his emphasis has been on the 111 ministers. And let me tell you that when he said Muhammad worked with 90 ministers, or what is 99 ministers, what was a wage bill to GDP? It was about 42%. And we said that all the tax revenues that we collected in the year, we spent all on wages, salaries and wages, interest payments, and then statutory transfers. That was it. Now, that percentage, in spite of that bloated figure, if you should call it, the rates, the wage and salary is taking just 28% of the income of government, the revenues of government.
But we're generating more these days.
So we are generating more.
Compared to the last year. So if you do the rate to GDP, then that's not fair.
So now we have been able to reduce the proportion of revenues that goes to wages and salaries from about 42 to 28%. It's not comparable with the interest amount that is allocated for the interest, which is also about 28%. Now, with that lower number of ministers, let's just look at some statistics if we have to go into that. What was the GDP growth? The nominal GDP growth that we left in 2016 was just about 3%. Okay. Now, we left about 8%. This indicates a lot of goodwill. I can show you a lot more. For instance, if you look at the GDP per capita, you left it at about 1,400. We are doing 1,900 in 2018. 1,900.
There's been rebasing of the economy.
Yeah, the rebasing of the economy aside, because the rebasing effectively would even reduce the ratio of the wages and salaries to GDP.
No, I'm talking in relation to the per capita.
Yeah, okay.
Because definitely once it's been rebased, the per capita will go up.
Okay, no, but of course, 2018 numbers indicate that we are already above what we inherited at 1,500 in 2016. 1,500. We are now doing 1,900. There are many other indicators that we can look at. What is important for us is that it is how the leader of government or how the government perceives the delivery of those initiatives that it has. If indeed John Mohammed's government did well with the 99, why is that within 2 years all our roads, everybody is demonstrating.
So
we'll come to roads.
Yes. So don't take the wind out of my sails.
Okay, so every sector, the real sector growth, I would like to read the real sector growth.
Are you having the budget there with you?
Yeah, I have it here. I have a summary.
Okay, you want to take us through some of the numbers, the macroeconomic indicators? But don't worry. But I think generally what you're trying to say is that overall there's been tremendous growth, especially at the macro level. Yes,
at the macro level, it's so exciting. Look at the effort of government in trying to stabilize that, to maintain the rate of growth of the economy. That in itself should give a minimum indication to all Ghanaians that it doesn't matter if we have 110 or 111 ministers, as long as the output is higher. What is this reference to people who are doing social media? I mean, I think it's an affront to most of them. Everybody does social media. I did social media this morning, and I'm sure he does it. Roland, I'm sure you've done it today. So that in itself adds to productivity where it is necessary. Some of us, we do even our business using social media. So that should not be a cause for worry. As long as we spend time focusing on what the ministries require. Yesterday, for instance, we had a retreat, and we had one-on-one encounter with the ministers, the majority caucus, and every minister was questioned, what is it that he was doing? What came out is that we needed the information minister to gather as much as possible every activity of each minister on a monthly or quarterly basis, depending on what is convenient. So everybody knows what each one is doing. The minister for monetary evaluation was there, and he supported that view, that we need to know what our ministers are doing, so that it's not about 110, but it's about the output.
Okay.
And as we go to various sectors, we will see what our ministers are doing.
If I have to summarize, before you come in, if I have to summarize what you're saying that because we've seen tremendous growth, and of course it's translated into good indicators at the macro level, that's a good justification for incremental number of personnel. That could be assigned to do whatever work as far as the structure of government is concerned. What are you saying, sir?
You see, what I'm saying is that it is the output, the number that you put in. He said labor and something. He did some science calculation.
Output over labor.
For example, you take from South Africa to the UK, etc. Approximately, they have ministers less than 40.
Yes. It depends on what they are focused on to do.
Their economies are bigger. You are aware
I know their economies are bigger. That is why you would need maybe fewer people to manage a big economy. I would say small. Look, the total GDP, as we see today, from when God made the world, is just about 206 billion Ghana cedis. In dollar terms, it's less than 50 billion. And that is what you and I will survive on if we don't increase it. And if you look at the rate of growth of the GDP, the nominal rate of growth, between 2012 and 2016, the maximum that the NDC did, or let me use the average, was adding about 25 billion cedis per annum to the GDP. From 2017, consistently on average, we are adding about 40 billion. We are doing twice what NDC was doing so that we can grow the base. When you grow the base, we have a lot of new resources. We have opportunity to tax and generate more revenue. So we should focus on growing the economy. When we're able to do that...
I'll put my question again to you.
Yes.
And you're saying that, well, because we're seeing tremendous growth, that is a justification for the having higher numbers
let me say it again.
To ensure that we spearhead that growth. Is that what you're saying?
The minister has told us that the numbers at the office of the presidency is rather reducing. That's what he said. And I think that is the debate. It's not to say that we are adding more, but mine is more of explaining that even if it is 110 or 120 ministers, what is the output? The other side which we need to take care of is that out of the 110 or 11 ministers that we have, about 60 ministers are MPs. 60 ministers or deputy ministers are MPs who already have a basic salary. So it is the few, so you see that we have more MP ministers than non-MP ministers.
So it doesn't mean that we're spending more necessarily.
That is why the wage bill, in spite of the big figure, is reduced to about 28% of the total revenue from about 42.
That percentage comparison, I'm saying that if we look at the quantums in terms of if it's the allocation, if it's 600, we're not going to find 600 in 2016 and find 600, or find 500 in 2017 and find 400 in 20. It's rather going to increase because the economy has grown. And so if you want to do the comparison relative to GDP, definitely it's going to reduce.
It's because the GDP is
You're
growing.
A finance man. You agree with me?
You
agree with me. So the economy is growing. So definitely once it's growing, the rate at which you spend on wages and salaries in comparison to how big your economy or GDP is going to reduce.
Yeah.
So that's a justification. So you're going to have lesser percentages.
But the total, even if you looked at the absolute numbers that are projected, it's about 19 billion cedis that's going to go into wages and salaries.
I do understand. I do understand all that you're saying.
So the averages or these ratios are just to indicate the relationship between the wages and the revenues.
It's important nonetheless. It's not as if to take away your argument.
All I would say is that there's, if for example, the NDC had told us that when you work with 60, you get this output.
You don't think we need to have smaller numbers of ministers at all? It looks like that's not an argument for government.
No. It's not about
government is rather justifying why we have the high numbers because the economy is growing. So you need to. But I'm also saying that we have bigger economies that grow bigger, and they have smaller people that manage them.
Well, like I said, the president has a vision for Ghana, and he wants to develop this with 110 ministers. 111 ministers. And what we need to do is to hold government.
If you look through the budget, you have the Minister for Special, is it Special Initiatives?
Special Development Initiative.
Special Development Initiatives. And she is heading a ministry at the presidency that's building boreholes, building chip compounds, and doing all that. Building boreholes, that's a work for who?
Water and sanitation.
Water and sanitation.
So, and building chip compounds, that's a work for who?
Ministry of Health.
Let me try to explain.
You do consider, yeah.
Let me
consider this, but you keep that response. But look, we have to be realistic. I know what you're coming to tell me. We've had oil,
Don't speak to my paper.
Okay, I've not seen it. All right.
Let's go ahead.
So what will be your justification for what he's responded to?
You see, Honorable.
That the economy that you left,
you see,
now there's a great justification. The economy has grown tremendously. Have you cited the targets for the next financial year?
Roland.
Yes, sir.
Let us be very fair to ourselves. And Honorable is a member of the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
The economy is not static. The GDP of Ghana, as we speak today, cannot be same as it was last year. In fact, you cannot be as old as you were last year. The GDP of Ghana has never been static.
Are you saying we don't have countries that were that are poorer this year compared to last year? Is that what you're saying?
No. Poverty reduction is different from GDP growth. These are two different variables altogether. Now let us speak to the issue of the growth. Honorable, you know better that non-oil growth, when you continuously refer to 3.7, and I've heard the Minister for Finance and the President refer to the growth of 3.7 in 2016 as the lowest for the last 23 years. The question I ask you, which you know better, what was the non-oil growth in 2016?
So meaning that
oil growth,
that if you remove
oil,
the element of oil and its contribution,
it is not for nothing that when we are calculating GDP, we have non-oil growth and we have growth that includes oil. It is because the oil industry does not fit too much into our economy. It does not guarantee jobs for our young people. It only brings us revenue, right? That's why we have oil and non-oil growth. In 2016, the very year that you claim we did worse under President Mahama, the non-oil growth was about 5.7. Far more than what we achieved in 2017 and 2018. Far more than what we achieved for non-oil growth. The records are there. You see, what made us to grow at 3.7 was the fact that we did very poorly in the area of oil industry, the oil and gas industry. For instance, government has targeted to rig in about 1.5 billion in respect of oil. We ended up getting around 600 million Ghana cedis in case of oil. 2019, you are anticipating to rig in as much as 5 billion Ghana cedis. 2018, you got as much as 3 billion Ghana cedis. You know why you got those resources? Because of the investments of President Mahama and the NDC. You are aware of what you are getting from the TEM project. You know what you are getting from Sankofa Jinyami. These were all investments supervised by President Mahama, the man that was described as incompetent and corrupt. In fact, I remember even the TEM project, when they came to sign, the ENI came to sign the contract on the TEM project, the President Akufo-Addo had alleged that the contract or the arrangement was inflated by some $7 million US. An allegation that you have abandoned in power. And so I'm telling you that when you want to talk about growth, let us talk about non-oil growth and let's talk about the entire GDP of this country. And when you do that segregation, you will know that we even grew much better. In 2016, when we had Dumso, we grew much better than you recorded in 2017 and 2018. That's a matter of public record. And the budget will speak to that. Now, Roland, they are talking about outputs, what they have achieved. With the 111 ministers and deputy ministers, with the over 1,600 staffers at the presidency, tell us what you have achieved. How many kilometers of road have you fixed? How many basic schools have you constructed? How many secondary schools have you constructed? What have you added to access to electricity? What have you added to access to safe drinking water?
But that's not fair, is it?
It is fair.
There's implementation of free SHS.
You see,
are your constituent beneficiaries of free SHS?
It's a nationwide policy.
Okay.
Remember,
there's also an initiative, Planting for Food and Jobs. And do you know that over the period, according to government estimates and the records that we've been told as media that we've also verified, the estimates are that, of course, we've not gone to the grounds to know whether...
What you should do?
745,000 people have gained employment in the agriculture sector alone because of planting for food and jobs.
Roland, the Minister for Agri can only engage the media on those issues. He cannot repeat those numbers in Parliament.
Why?
Because that's not true. 745,000 people employed in 2017 alone as a result of planting for food and jobs.
Why is it not
that
possible?
Cannot be true. The entire public service of Ghana is about 600,000 people. For you to roll out a project and claim that you have created 745 jobs without telling us the consequence of those jobs, how can you assume that because people came for 745,000 bags of fertilizers, you have created those number of jobs? How do you say that a person who has been farming for the past 30, 40 years comes to take a fertilizer from you and you claim that you have created a job for him? That cannot be. They can't explain those numbers. Look, even planning for food and jobs, Roland, the media should go onto the ground. When you do a project like planting for food and jobs, we expect crop yield. We expect crop yield to go high. We expect food prices to go down.
Haven't the output been high?
That is not true. Go to the Ghana Statistical Service data. Go to GSS.
We have stories, of course, replicated in the media about gluts of produce, etc. from farming areas.
That's not true. But that crop yield is not seeing any increment. Prices of foodstuffs are increasing at the very time that we are being told about the fruits of planting for food and jobs. And so tell us, after all these 111 ministers and deputy ministers, over 1,600 staffers, the special assistants, and over the 50 billion borrowing.
You have to put that into perspective.
And over the
because the 1,614 is for the Office of Government Machinery. It includes parks and gardens and the rest.
But I have told you, what are they doing today that we didn't do?
As we transition into the next discussion, it's all related to infrastructure and what has been done by the Akufo-Addo-led government or not. And the president traveled to the Afram Plains and the chiefs. If you take a look at the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper, it says that chiefs hail Nana. They're talking about President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo for not flying chopper to Afram Plains. And so by riding his car, and if he took the pontoon, it depends on which section of the routes that he would be using to the Afram Plains. He may have seen the bad roads. And so that's what the chief was indicating. But when the vice president also was in Nandom to celebrate a festival with the chiefs and people of the area, he seemed to have questioned claims by the John Mahama administration that they had constructed roads and other forms of infrastructure. Let's get that insight, and then we'll ask the critical questions on the subject.
$1 billion GET fund facility. We are going to proceed and complete these uncompleted projects as well as construct new projects of infrastructure for our senior high schools and vocational schools.
He then went for the jugular and reintroduced what has come to be known as the record challenge. He challenged the opposition NDC to sow one major road they have completed in 8 years of their reign in the Upper West region.
In the last 8 years of the previous NDC government, there was not one major road completed in the Upper West region. Not one. And I challenge the NDC to come and show us one road, major road in the Upper West region that they completed in 8 years of government. One, Bakupe, just one road.
So the vice president kept repeating the refrain, Bakupe, just one road completed in the Upper West region. Sir, you never did anything. But should the vice president be going this way?
Of course, we have to communicate, like you said. We need to communicate what we're doing. I don't know whether you allow me 2 minutes to talk about economy.
I'll give you a minute, yes.
Just 1 minute. Look. Now, the question was about real GDP growth. And I would like to say that the real GDP growth, and this is from the 2019 budget, is that for the first half of the year was 5.4%, including oil. Now, without oil, real GDP GDP growth, excluding oil, was 4.9, 5.4 and 4.9.
Which year?
So 2018, half year. All right. What that means is that the contribution of oil.
2016. Let's check for 2016. Non-oil.
Yeah, I'll come to that.
And that will
I don't have. I have from 2012,
okay.
so I can give you all that.
Okay.
Now, the real GDP growth without oil, as I made of 2018, was 4.9%, almost 5%. Now, what that tells us is that the oil sector contributes to the economy, but by how much? If you read further, it says that petroleum revenues, which are expected to grow by 30% in 2018, is expected to contribute as little as 9.4% of domestic revenue. Simply, we are saying that even if the petroleum sector should boom, the expectation is that we can't get more than 10% of the total revenue from petroleum sector. So it's not a big employer. The petroleum sector is very important. It's a strategic industry that we have. But when it comes to the benefits, we are getting less than 10% of our revenue, revenues, domestic revenues from that side. How many people does that industry really employ? So sincerely, the petroleum sector, like I said, is good that we have it, but it is not a major contributor to GDP. It's not a major contributor to our revenues. It doesn't hire people. All right.
Powers.
Now, going to the question about infrastructure, and we say that should the vice president go this way? Yes, the vice president need to let Ghanaians know the state of the roads, infrastructure that we had. Only 2 years, and all the roads in Ghana which were purported to have been built and constructed are all down. And every day, if you go to Expo of Imbraka, my own constituency, just about a week ago, there was a demonstration by the drivers, rightly so, because the roads are terrible, and we have to fix it. The rains, that is a very heavy rainfall area.
Are you saying that after almost 24 months in office?
Yes, so we are committed to dealing with that. But then,
But you didn't expect the NDC to build every road in Ghana, did you?
Of course. So I didn't expect that it should do that. But then, within
You've seen some of the nice roads that have been done. Before the end of 2016, you've seen them.
Whatever roads were done, remember there were also other roads that the MPP did when we came to government. Every government that comes to power does some infrastructure of some roads. You see, but when you look at the rural roads, where we get the most of votes for the NDC, the roads are in bad shape, and we are committed to doing that. In 2019, the budget is making provision. Within the budget is up to spend 8.5 billion cedis on infrastructure. 8.5 billion cedis is no small money. Aside that, the Ghana Educational Trust Fund is raising 1.5 billion US dollars equivalent in cedis to complete ongoing educational infrastructure.
Is that what we securitize the?
Yes,
okay.
With future receivables.
Yeah, sure.
Next 10 years, the monies that ordinarily will go to GET fund.
What percentage then has
it's about 40%
of the GET fund? The GET fund receipts?
Yes.
That's what has been
expected GET fund receipts. About 40% of it would go into education infrastructure. And that is huge, 1.5 billion.
And that investment is just for the next financial year? Or
it's for the next 2 years. We're going to work towards...
Before we
continue in government. You see, now again, railway infrastructure, other major roads, interchanges, we have been able to secure about $2 billion under a Sino-Hydro program, where most of these roads will be fixed. And there's already a list of major projects, infrastructure projects, including railroads, that will be constructed within this period of 2 years. The monies that we have, the argument has been that it's a loan, it's not a loan. I think we've gone past that debate. At the last meeting, it was evident that we are using our own resources, which are in the ground, part of it, to secure this funding for infrastructure development. 2019, the minister said to us that in the past, our challenge has been revenue mobilization, domestic revenue mobilization, and so we cannot continue to rely on that for infrastructure development. As a result, there are many, many steps that we have taken. And the long-term view is that we have the PPP, public-private partnerships in infrastructure development, so that we can have a country that...
that has always been there. That's why Setepe said that we need to have smart borrowing.
We don't even have a law governing PPPs. You see, but I was in Sydney about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and all the roads are by private participation, and you can't believe what revenues they generate.
All that I want to say is that the idea you're saying has been mooted for the last 3 or 4 years.
But
so
there's no
it's not
legislation.
new.
There's no legislation.
It's a process, it's not.
Yes, a process.
I think we have
hoping
to
conclude that, and then we'll have investors.
I think that is
coming.
good.
Yes.
That aspect about making sure that we have the needed regulation for PPP, because in the UK they have it.
Yes,
if you just check
here,
Google now,
once it's with us,
encyclopedia is always available.
Investments trooping into the country, so that we can have all these investments in infrastructure. The railway line, if we're to do even from Kumasi to Paga in the northern sector, look at the number of economic activities that will develop along the railway line to the north, and then to cut goods and services, goods from our ports to the hinterlands. This is a big thing that I think we all should support the government to achieve. So that at the end
government
of the
has our support. The thing
yeah,
is
that is good.
We've had constant demonstration. I went to cover one about a month and 2 weeks ago. That was 6 weeks ago at Insakina, just Greater Accra region. A number of roads have been done as well, but more needs to be done.
Yes, a lot more.
I think that playing politics with infrastructure becomes a bit of a hazy issue. But the thing is, the reality is, Ghana is a developing country. We will need more. But what the Vice President is saying, almost like just taking a dig at the NDC and saying that you say you have done infrastructure, but we're not seeing anything on the ground.
Roland, it's rather unfortunate that the Vice President and his boss, His Excellency the President, still seem to be in the campaign mood. They need to transit their minds and their bodies from campaigning to governing. That is not what I'm seeing, and that is worrying. This is not the first time that the Vice President has thrown a challenge of that sort to us. The recent one he did was about social intervention, and in fact, the Vice President has forgotten that even he himself, he's a walking example of our interventions. He should be tracing his history, how he came to Bank of Ghana. His very existence at Bank of Ghana has subsequently become a running mate to President Akufo-Addo. He's a walking example of our intervention.
Social?
You see, I say he's a walking example.
Meaning what?
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
That he came to the Bank of Ghana.
When did he come to Bank of Ghana? And
during the NDC period.
Who brought him from Canada to Bank of Ghana?
Very well.
We're not discriminating in what we do. So it's a walking example of our interventions. In any case, when you want to talk about infrastructure, you see, the MPP cannot compare what they have achieved so far within the last 2 years to what we achieved from 2013 to 2014. I don't want to use our 8-year period or the 4-year period of President Mahama to compare to what they have done for the past 2 years. That would be unfair to them. What we have achieved from 2013 to 2014, compare it to what they have achieved so far, and our record would dwarf them. He's talking about upper West region, that we've done nothing, that no road was completed. The Wa municipality routes has been completed. He's aware. Wa municipality routes has been completed. UGS Wa campus, the inner roads of the school, were worked on under President Mahama. These are living examples, things that he cannot deny. We never claim that we had fixed all the problems in this country. Never. And no government can do that. We only did what we could do. And we are challenging them to do what they can also do. So far, they have done nothing to show. You see, when you talk about infrastructure and you make references to Sino Hydro of $2 billion US, that's why they say the budget is a Chinese budget. You are hinging almost everything on the $2 billion Sino Hydro deal and another $3 billion CDB loan, a facility also from China.
Well, because they are sure.
You see why?
Very confident government.
Under President Mills, have you forgotten that we had also gone for the same CDB loan?
But this is not President Mills' government.
Take it easy. $3 billion loan facility. They released only $1 billion that was used for the Atuabo gas project, and the $2 billion never came.
Because you couldn't meet the conditionality.
The MPP would be in serious troubles if for any reason the Chinese people fails on the disbursement of the 3 billion CDB facility and also the $2 billion dollar facility from Sino Hydro. Now, when we talk about, we have gone past whether it is a loan or a barter trade. We haven't gone past there.
Why not?
The 170 billion loan debt portfolio that the Bank of Ghana is reporting today excludes the 2 billion Sino Hydro deal. At the exchange rate of 5, $2 billion US would give you 10 billion Ghana cedis. In all forms and shapes, that facility is not a barter trade. It's a loan. But we understand why you are now running away from loans.
But
we understand why today when you go for loans, you cannot qualify them as loans because of what you had said earlier about loans.
But the minority. You wrote to the IMF. The IMF came to give...
Have you seen that letter? Have you seen a letter from IMF indicating that it was a barter trade and not a loan facility?
We've cited some communication to that effect.
Oh, Roland, have you cited any communication from IMF?
Your colleague,
No.
Did he get any response from the IMF?
Oh, you see, Roland.
I'm asking you because he applied. Did he get? You're asking me whether.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
But in any case, do we need to write to IMF to know whether a facility is a loan or barter trade?
But that's
if
what
I
you
come
did.
to you,
but that's what you
no,
did.
Roland, if I come to you
but that's what you
to borrow money,
but let's move on.
If I come to you to borrow money, do we need a third party to tell me whether I have come for a loan from you? I know I have come for money from you.
But it's not a loan. The IMF says this is. It doesn't smack of a loan.
What makes it a barter trade?
We have resources beneath the earth. And
let me tell you,
you're using that as collateral.
All the loans that we have today.
Once we're able to process it and get
Roland, take it easy. All the loans we have today, we would either pay with our taxes or with our natural resources proceeds. It doesn't change anything. In any case, Roland, there is an element of deferred payment here. We are not paying the monies now.
Well, true.
There's a deferment payment. What's a loan? What is debt? It's a deferment payment. It attracts interest. It has all the features of a loan facility. But like I said, when the vice president said that we have a lot of money in this country, we don't need to borrow, they can govern without borrowing.
The government said that?
Oh, President then candidate Vice running mate Mahmoud Bawumia made remarks to that effect, that they could run this country without borrowing, and that he had worked at the Bank of Ghana and he knows that we have money in this country. Today, when they go to borrow, they can't be proud of themselves. We borrowed and we can show you what we did with the amounts of money that we borrowed. You have gone to borrow over 50 billion minus the Sino Hydro deal of $2 billion US. Tell us 1 kilometer of road that you have fixed. Tell us if you have been able to construct a kindergarten. Tell us if you have added access to safe drinking water in this country. Tell us if you have added a single megawatt of power.
Why do you try to... You mean on a massive scale? Or?
Roland.
Because boreholes are being built in.
Oh, Roland. I say they should tell us.
Water systems are being implemented for communities.
Where?
They're existing.
Where?
They're existing for...
They should tell us 1 kilometer of road that they have fixed. You saw the asphalt that we did in Accra, the relaying of asphalt in Accra under President Muhammad, during the last days of President Muhammad.
Actually, did in other regions as well, yeah.
Exactly.
Capitals of other.
So they should tell us, over the 50 billion borrowing, we have collected over 70 billion in tax revenue, over 70 billion since we assumed power.
But that's
we have
just
borrowed over
simplifying
50
the issue. You're a member of parliament. You just don't simplify the issue that you collected 70 billion. What did you use it for?
So,
that's not a fair argument.
So what do you want me to say? That we have gone to take taxes in excess of 70 billion? No. And that's why we must speak to the issues.
Okay.
That you have gone to take taxes over 70 billion.
This is a budget that you've brought.
Oh.
And all appropriations are made based on the budget.
Okay.
So you cannot say that revenue that's reported to you has just been thrown where? Is that what you're saying?
Deliverables of the budget. In 2018, all the roads that you said you would do, you have repeated those same roads in 2019. A very good example is the Tamale Yenje road that you promised in 2018 budget that you were fixing and monies were allocated to it. Yeah. You have repeated that same road facility and you have also allocated resources. Yeah. And so we are simply asking that governance is about delivering goods and services.
And so far you say they haven't delivered.
What have you seen yourself?
Free SHS. That's free SHS planting for food and jobs.
Let me tell you something.
One district, one factory is at an advanced stage.
Check.
Do you know one district, one factory is at an advanced stage?
Come and check at the Parliamentary Hands Act and you know. That free senior
let me give you the last one. It looks like my time is up.
Yeah.
I give you a minute. Just summarize.
Okay. All right, a minute. Just to say that we can explain all the 50 billion, what we use it for,
including
arrears that we are paying for ongoing projects. We could have abandoned those projects, but at whose cost? Ghanaians' cost.
The debt has increased.
Yes.
So don't say you have no profile. It has increased.
No. Let me talk to you about that.
Because you have no profile.
We have paid arrears, and I think the minister on debating, the deputy minister for, you mean you didn't leave anything? All those projects that were signed, contracts that were signed.
How much is paid as interest annually?
This year we are looking at approximately 19 billion.
No. What was paid from last year? Because the borrowing, we've been borrowing from every year.
No, we pay a lot.
Okay, so we're estimating for 2019.
But what I want to say in conclusion is that when Abdul Aziz is not sure about Sino Hydro coming, I'm telling you already we have about 649 has come.
Yes.
So to say it's not coming, it's not the case.
I didn't say so.
Yeah.
I said you will be in dire consequences
but the
if it doesn't come. The 3 billion CDB facility.
That is a remote possibility. But the truth is that the minister says we have enormous credibility now.
Credibility?
Yes. Enormous credibility on the international market to raise funding with a B rating, with all the micro fundamentals improving. The minister is very confident to go to the world market.
But that's the point. They're saying that we said, while you're in opposition, you said, well, even if the ratings were good, you still wouldn't go and borrow.
Never did we say we were not going to borrow. What we said at the time, and I'm sure you have all the records, is to indicate to you that we are going to get value for everything that we borrow.
Ghanaians have forgiven you about the borrowing. Today we are borrowing, we are forgiving you. What we now want is what we have used the borrowings for.
Yes.
All right.
So we are going to see
let's end our discussion this morning.
We are going to see a lot of it.
You know, we have a new initiative coming up. It's we have a department called Thought Leadership. Okay. And so we bring about good discussions, and we have an initiative called Scorecard. Okay. It's going to do a public assessment of the performance of the Kufuor-Addo-led government 2 years into office. Yes. So
the last one you did, what was the results? I saw some online posts that you did.
No mischief. All right. So Anthony Efa is a member of Parliament for Esukuma Odobrin Brakwa constituency. He's a member of Parliament's Finance, Works and Housing Committees. You're Charlie. And then works. You get money, finance, money day there. And then also we have Nohammed Abdul Aziz, member of Parliament for Myong. Thanks for joining me, Mohammed.
Your favorite constituency, I know.
Myong, yes. I know it off the cuff.
You have to visit.
But let's